Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to Data Forge. We today have a special guest, Ketzer. Hello, Ketzer. Thank you so much for joining us. Great. Really happy to have you here. Today we're going to be talking about art, and this is episode 5, Art Project Part 2. We're going to be talking about a lot of cool stuff with the art of Keyforge, um, the lore of Keyforge, and a lot of the episode is actually going to be taking archon art from decks that I own, decks that Ketzer own, and decks a few of our longtime viewers own, and seeing how we can use a AI to represent those archons in a new way. So that's going to be really fun and exciting to go through. Yeah, and I think make sure that everything is set up right. So here's what we're going to be going over. As I said, we're going to be looking at what is the archon? What is the archon within Keyforge and the Crucible? And how can archon represent itself? And then we're going to actually make our own representations of our archon using AI. We're going to get a lot into things that Ketzer has done of in the Keyforge universe and with his very artistic skills. He's done a lot of cool stuff that I think people will like to see. Um, and we'll also get into some questions and then close it out. So, um, yeah, okay. I screwed up a little bit, but
Yeah.
now we're good. So, Ketzer, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us your background with Keyforge, and also what brings you enjoyment in the universe of Keyforge?
Right, yeah. So I got started playing Keyforge in 2020, just before the lockdown, which was uh, not the easiest way to get started playing the game. So I missed pretty much all of the store events that were going on in my area, and the scene had dried up aside from me and my close friends. But the Crucible Online existed, and I found some ways to play that occasionally, and the Keyforge Adventures have brought me a lot of fun. Um, One of the things that like really drew me into Keyforge was just the setting in general, because it was something that I kind of played with a while back for like a D&D setting, was the idea of a place where different parts of different worlds could be grabbed and pulled in, and you could find yourself amongst anything from like Martians to barbarians, you know, all that sort of thing. And it kind of had like a similar feel, but it wasn't really anywhere presentable or playable for a game. And then Keyforge came along and kind of has that concept and just way better than I ever could have imagined. Like the concept of the archons could be anything, anything that you run into in the Crucible could have sentience. The amber and the way that the amber is used for all kinds of different things. Like there's so much in the universe that can be explored. And I just think like that breadth of things and that kind of like chemistry set that they've given us to play with is just very intriguing as far as the setting goes.
Yeah, that's so cool, and I really like that too. And I've seen some of the art that shows kind of the two places within the Crucible where the kind of two of these worlds, there's a border between them, and it looks, all crazy. And I think there's still so much that they can do within this universe. Not only
Oh yeah.
in the card game itself, but even beyond the card game, the role playing game, stories. whatever, especially, where these worlds combine.
Right. I mean, this is like super franchisable, and we're in a day and age where things like I'm trying to think of the video game that had the like Arcana anime that came out. Was that not Fortnite?
I'm not
But
sure.
yeah, there's a lot of games and like IPs and stuff like that that cross over into different medias,
Oh, League of
and I feel
Legends
like
League of
okay,
Legends has done like a board game. Now they have like the TV show. Yeah, that's Arcana, right? Arcane? I don't know.
I'm not really sure. I just know that there's like a lot of possibility for like crossing over with an IP nowadays. And I think Keyforge like you know it got some steam there for a while. That like topped over Yu-Gi-Oh for that one quarter. And
Yeah.
if it could get like traction like that again, I think it could eventually like really bleed out into a lot of areas.
Ah, I totally agree. I'm gonna be on the phone with Netflix and see if they want to pick up a Keyforge Adventures TV series.
Hey, it worked for D&D. Maybe we can get another crowdfunding campaign and break another million for a Keyforge anime.
Yeah. Oh, and I just got to give a shout out to the chat. Dinobot, thanks for all the excitement, the hype. Nice to see you as always. And then we have a
Hey,
first time
everybody.
chat from Big Thorson 502, who's excited to see the
Oh,
Ace
hey,
of
buddy.
Keys.
Yeah, cool. We got a lot of people. I can't actually see what the chat is right now.
Yeah, I'll try and keep you updated. Nice seeing you, Big Thorson. Um, so
He is
yeah,
that's Big Thorson's actually the one that got me into Keyforge, introduced it to me in the first place.
that's so cool. We have gratitude for you as well, then, Big Thorson, because we're very happy that Ketzer is in our world and helping out with a lot of cool things in the community, which is really a great segue. I wanted to give a shout out to all the things that Ketzer has been doing. He just released within the last couple weeks a learn to paint with like a Keyforge subject, which is really cool. He's got lots of awesome stuff on his Instagram. We're going to check out one of his comics. Some of them are really hilarious. Lots of good stuff also on his ArtStation. And he's also working on his own custom Keyforge Adventure. So I'm going to paste the links to all this in the chat. And then when I upload this to YouTube as well, I'll include the links there. Um, all right. And so with that, let's take a look. And this is one of the comics that I personally really liked. And I think we'll let Ketzer talk about some of the jokes in this, but I really love the guy who's like that jingle, bingle, bang, bang. Like, it's I don't know, it makes me laugh. Just because Bingo Bang Bang is a very interesting and funny creature in Brobnar, and yeah, I don't know, I love that.
Yeah, so I wanted to do the comics as kind of a way to just explore some things in the universe of Keyforge and also kind of make some jokes every now and then that are a little bit meta. Like in this comic, it's kind of the idea, it came after the news that Logos and Shadows and Untamed would be out in Winds of Exchange and that we would be getting Mars and Brobnar back. The two characters being a goblin and a Martian, actually, those two were planned like before we knew that Mars and Brobnar were coming back. Those are
Oh,
just two
nice.
characters I really enjoy and have drawn for a while. But I put in like little jokes, like in the first panel, there's a Cronus type critter, kind of like carrying away a box of draw enhancements, making a joke that maybe we won't have as many draw enhancements without logos.
I love that.
And then I kind of set up some stuff in the background a little bit, kind of a peek behind the curtain. And like that third panel, there's a bar and casino coming soon, and it's pasted over a sign that says pennies. And that's, ooh, pardon me, that's kind of setting up for later because I eventually am going to write in a bar owner who is a Gatrukian, and it'll be like just kind of a gambling bar that's new in town, and that'll be like another scene that I can put some of these comics in.
That is so cool. And thank you, Fudgenator, for the resub. I really appreciate it. And Fudgenator Murph says, "Love these cartoons so much by Ketzer." So lots of love. And one of the other cartoons, you guys got to go look at his Instagram. One of the other cartoons I love features a quote, "What the quark?" And there's like lots of great quotes in his comics. So please go check him out. Lots of good stuff.
Well, and that's another thing I like about Keyforge is there are like a few adult-ish kind of jokes here and there, like Mushroom with a View is kind of like a psychedelic drug reference. Um, but those kind of things like go over kids' heads. And it's a game that I feel is like kid friendly. So I wanted my comics to kind of be in that same vein, like accessible to younger people. Um, so something like What the Quark, kind of censor it a little bit, make it a little bit funny, and then
I love
maybe
it.
like reuse that line a little bit down the road.
Yeah, I'm gonna be using that line. It's a great line. It's perfect. It's so Keyforge.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, thanks for sharing the insight on this comic. Really cool stuff. Um,
Yeah.
so a lot of what we're going to be talking about in this episode is um, Archon art and kind of things that we've done with the Archon art here. And what we've used is actually an AI to generate some new representations of Archon. And so, what is AI art? What it does is actually they're machine learning systems, but what they do is they create this noise, and based off of a training, a model that they've created, out of this noise comes these pictures. And so that's pretty crazy stuff. They're trained on like hundreds, thousands of images, and um, it'll be interesting as we get through some of our examples to see kind of um, how that noise and how that kind of the noise helps really with the random creation aspect so that even with the same prompt you can get almost infinite kind of number of types of images. um, and so specifically for what I've been using a local repository of this GitHub um, repository by automatic 1111, and it's a fork of the Stable Diffusion repository, their main GitHub repository, which is down here by CompViz. And I use that fork because it has a lot of nice features to run it locally. Um, and so, kind of all these images that we'll be going through today, that's what I've used to generate them. But yeah, so talking a little bit more about the process. Um, there's a couple things that I can do with that software. One is just taking a text prompt and the model will create an image from it. Um, and another one is using a starting image and combined with a text prompt, it will create another image. And you can also set how much of the starting image should it use to affect the resulting image. And that's pretty interesting also using an Archon image as a starting point because you can kind of put like have almost no similarity and it kind of keeps some of the same colors but kind of everything else is different. Whereas if you make it a lot more similar, then even some of kind of the features in the Archon art might appear in kind of the resulting image. And so we'll see some examples of that. It's pretty cool. Um, as part of this process, though, it's not most of the times it's not as easy as, hey, I got this Archon name, I'm gonna put it in, and out comes a really cool image and exactly what I want. A lot of what we did here was iteration. We would generate an image with a prompt. I'd get feedback. So if it was Ketzer's Archon, I get feedback from Ketzer and say, okay, based off of this, what do you like, what do you don't like? And sometimes I would mash together multiple images to use as a new starting image in the image to image process. But or sometimes I would change the prompt to generate new images. And so through this whole episode, all the background that I needed and work needed to get to the resulting images, I actually generated over 6,000 images using this, because a lot of them are not actually what we wanted. We take bits and pieces of
Mm,
some, we combine some together. Um, some of them do come out really interesting all by themselves, and we actually have some examples of that later on. Um, but that was kind of the process. So with that, Ketzer, why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of the archons of the Crucible?
yeah, so the archons, like I was kind of alluding to earlier, one of the neat things I like about them is that they can appear as anything that they want to. There's some examples in some of the literature, like in the stories of Inca the Spider. There's one that I think is just called the Shroud or something like that, the Shade, and um, it appears spider-sized as just like a masked, shadowy blob. It's been a minute since I read that one, so I might be getting that a bit wrong. And then another one appears as an elf child. There's one in the Tales of the Crucible that's I think called Ponderous Earl, and Ponderous Earl was a mammoth of an archon, an adamantium-skinned golem, even heavier than he looked, and all of it. He has like bulging, rippling muscles that are just like made of this metallic kind of substance, and he barrels through these trees, and just no scratches are left on him.
Huh.
And so they have all these like different strange properties that they could kind of exhibit, I guess you could say. And the archon on the back, I think they went with a really smart choice of making it like a silhouette that gets put together, because there's so many different ways you can interpret it. It's like an ink blot test almost.
Yeah.
And another neat thing that's stated in the book is that they can appear as multiple things to like different species or different races or different groups or creeds to kind of appeal to them in different ways. But frustratingly, they can also appear as different things at the same time. So you might have an archon that's leading Dis and Sanctum, and the Sanctum see a glorious golden knight with like flowing auras coming off of it, whereas the Dis see like a hideous giant centipede with baby heads or something, you know?
Cool.
Like, and that can
We
be like
should have generated
simultaneous.
that.
And also, like it doesn't affect the immediate vicinity either. Like archivists have a real frustration with archons because they can appear as different things even through like a photograph or a data log, like later down the line.
Very cool. No, that's really great background and context, especially, I think it just shows that it's really built into Keyforge that archons can appear in any type of way. And like you said, they can even change. And so you can even have an archon that has multiple images. And we're gonna have some of that
Mm.
in when we generated some of this art too.
Yeah, usually whenever I open a deck, first off, one of the things I like to do is look at the archon and try to imagine what each house sees that silhouette as.
Mm.
And sometimes it's wildly different. Like something that might be the silhouette of a head for one is like the silhouette of a jetpack for another.
I really like that. That's a great idea. I might have to do that.
So it's a fun exercise. It kind of like bonds you with the deck a little bit.
Yeah.
Like you get to a point where you can recognize them by the archon art.
Yeah, no, I like that. And when I used to do some deck openings on stream after matches, and I would spend some time looking on the Archon art and at least trying to decipher, how could it appear, but I never thought of it from kind of each different house appearing differently. So I'll definitely have to think of it in that vein. I like that.
Hmm.
Okay, so that's a really great background to get us going. And so I started with one of my decks, and kind of this first starting process was a little bit simpler, because we didn't go using this one. We didn't go into kind of iterating on a lot of different details. What Ketzer did a great job was describing how he saw the archon and a lot of factors in the archon that he expected to see. Whereas I didn't have that, especially when I started out. So this was one of the first ones that I did. This is my deck, Anti-Phage the Baron of Blizzards. And what I did for this one was purely image to image. So I used its archon image as a starting point. And this is archon image. But I also thought, hey, this is the Baron of Blizzards. I do kind of want to see some of that. And so I got that at least in one of the images. Um, and so we'll take a look at that. But then this one's a little bit simpler, and then we'll get to some that there's more going on. And so I think it'll be fun to kind of see the difference. So here was, I also generated a whole bunch of images for this one. But this was my prompt. Antiphage, a Baron of Blizzards. Magnificent, elegant, beautiful, dynamic lighting, fantastical, light dust, elegant, diffuse, grimmer, intricate, light dust, blue and red contrast, volumetric lighting, triadic colors, splash art. Um, so that was prompt. And this was one of the Archon images that came out of it. And some of the aspects that I really liked of it was I kind of saw this kind of flowing dress thing matching kind of the Archon art really well. Um, and also some of kind of the the head and kind of the shoulder with the thing sticking out matched a little bit of the Archon art, and the whole kind of feel of the art I felt matched it really well. Hey, Dead Sync, nice to see you. Um, Thanks for watching. Now let's get on to the second one. And what I really liked about the second one, even though the Archon itself is really cool and it has kind of some of the similar properties, is now we get some of the blizzard coming in. Kind of, you almost have these icicles coming from the top of this cave or this environment. So you kind of have some of the blizzard coming in here, while also the top I think really kind of a lot of it, the top and the kind of the flowing dress and some of the symbols on the flowing dress I feel are represented really well. Um, and so this was just kind of an initial kind of when I was started playing around with, okay, how could this work? You know, what is it going to look like, and kind of what will we be getting out of it? And so, based off of this, I was really happy with some of these responses, and I wanted to kind of, especially based off of some of the response of the viewers, make this as a um, something that we dug into a little bit more, which takes us very nicely to Ketzer's first deck that we take a look at. And so this is Vicestep Caravanserai Warmaster. And so why don't you tell us, Ketzer, a little bit about kind of what you saw um, on this Archon?
Yeah, so one of the first things I had to do with this deck was look up what a caravanserai was. And a caravanserai is just kind of like a hub where caravans can go and like safely meet up and like restock,
Okay, that's
that kind
cool.
of thing. And so like the setting of my comics is actually in that caravanserai that Vicestep is the War Master of. Um,
That's awesome.
so I kind of conceptualize that because the way me and my friends play Keyforge is we're very into complex board states, and this is actually a deck that has Curiosaurus and Fangtooth Cavern,
Oh,
and so the two of those together create a very fun dynamic. And I started thinking about like if a caravanserai actually existed where there was like perilous wilderness just to the outside of it, people coming and going all the time, a lot of money like exchanging hands and that sort of thing. And I was like, that's kind of a diverse setting. And then I started bringing in some elements of like Deep Space Nine into the mix.
Oh, nice.
And so you'll find a lot of Deep Space Nine references in my comics
That's
if
awesome.
you look hard enough.
What the cork?
Um, mm. So this Archon is just that they're the War Master of that caravanserai. So I conceptualized how I would imagine them in the comics and kind of how they would interact with things, and it's based off of a lot of the cards that are kind of in the deck. So we've got like a lot of Niflapes, and so you'll start seeing some bits where I put the prompts to have like purple fur and that sort of thing, and that's kind of like to appeal to the Niflapes in a way.
Ah,
Um, and then there's stuff like anguish, pandemonium. I try to get like some of those feels for like the kind of aggressive nature of a war leader in there.
I like it.
So that's where a lot of those text prompts came from. Was just kind of like the personality of how this deck plays and how I wanted to kind of reflect it in the comics at some point.
Very cool. In the chat, we have Dead Sync saying first best Star Trek series for Deep Space Nine,
Yeah.
and then second he said every year you've owned the deck, it's a Caravansary anniversary. Okay. Okay. So with kind of what Ketzer saw as some of the personality and some of kind of the features seen, that's what we use as kind of starting point for the prompt. And and this was one where we did a lot of iterations. So we started with a prompt
Mm.
really focusing on wearing the Triceratops skull, purple robes made of fur and feathers, arms made of bones, many red eyes, holding two staves. Also put in just kind of the adjectives: a leader, tactical, commanding, aggressive, decorated, affluent. And so kind of this first row here is kind of the first generation of pieces that came out of that, using also the archon art as the starting image, and that's why they're all purple, because the archon art was purple. And so based off of these kind of first three images, there were aspects that Ketzer kind of liked out of each of them, and I kind of mashed those together in Photoshop for this bottom right image to then use as a starting point for the next generation of images.
Part of what I really liked that ended up from kind of that first image to the last one is that background setting. Because in the setting that I imagine this Archon being in mostly, there is like a giant dragon skull. And so this is kind of like the perspective of like being
Ooh,
inside of that giant dragon skull and like looking out where the light's coming in through the holes in the front of the skull.
I love that. That's cool.
That was a big reason why I went with like that kind of background.
Nice. Yeah, and so we definitely get the background from that top left image. We get the nice kind of skull from that middle image, and then we get the body holding not quite two staves, but almost there in the third image. And so we combine those together. We use that as the source for the second iteration, and then we kind of got something very similar. Still kind of using the same prompt, but iterating using that first one as a starting image and having, let's see, I think, yeah, so this denoising strength modifier here, that is the value for how close it is to the starting image. So it's a value between 0 and 1. If it's 0, it's exactly the same as a starting image. If it's 1, it's nothing like the starting image. So I first started with 0.75, so mostly not like the starting image. But as you can see for the second generation and kind of for iterations after that, I went to denoising strength of 0.55. So I wanted to keep more since he likes certain aspects of that mashup. I wanted to keep more of those aspects for these next iterations. So yeah, we iterated a few more times here. This is kind of generation 2, 3, 4, and 5. Um, Kind of in generation 3, we got a really nice stave on the left side. And then on generation 4, we got a really nice stave on the right side. Um, and then we started working on getting some of that purple fur in there from fur and feathers from the Niflapes. And um, now there was a lot of kind of images generated and kind of feedback and making sure that we got kind of to all the right kind of aspects about it. But that's kind of what we came out with for Vicestep, Caravanserai, or Master.
Mm. And I like because this also kept kind of those skull shapes in the background where there's kind of like a decorated war room
Yeah,
with dragon skulls.
yeah, that's really nice. Dinobot says very nice, love the craftsmanship. Dead Sync says awesome. Dinobot says that's so cool. So Dead Sync says Vicestep doesn't mess around. That's right. He's a war
Yeah,
master, or I'm not sure if it's a he actually. Um,
I think it presents mostly masculine, probably.
yeah,
It's kind of hard to tell with archons. I don't think they really care.
that's true. Okay, so that was a great first example and a really good kind of archon to start with. I kind of really love how you crafted it, and kind of the resulting work really left us with a lot of kind of the aspects that you wanted to see in it. And I love kind of some of the stuff that you mentioned in the background too. It just adds a lot to the overall feel.
Yeah. Well, so eventually I hope to put this or like some close iteration of this into the comics at some point. I got a lot of work to do before then.
That's exciting. That's exciting. Dead Sync says that they also love the subtle parallels between the original Archon art and this. Yeah, it definitely has the staves that it's holding. The top could be perceived as kind of thrones.
Yeah, kind of the idea I was going with was that it was like a dinosaur's like a saurian skull um on top. And I think we got relatively close because I don't remember what the family of dinosaur that I'm imagining is, but it's like the Triceratops but with no horns, where they have that big kind of swooping back frill.
Mm.
I looked it up, but I didn't have confidence that the bot would recognize that as a useful prompt.
Oh yeah,
Just throwing in like a scientific name. So I just went with Triceratops skull and figured that that would be close enough.
nice. Okay, and that then takes us to our next Archon, Danger
Danger
Hands, the
hands.
leader locksmith. Why don't you tell us about Danger Hands?
Okay, so this is a deck. It occupies a weird space because I don't like to play this deck against my friends. It's a Purge Happy deck, which it does have Infernus. It's a Dis Sanctum Star Alliance. But what makes me feel less bad about it is you have to work to make the Infernus do a bunch of nasty things. So there's some hoops you got to jump through. It's got the Infernus and it's got a Snudge, which is one of each of those. But in the Sanctum, it has four Fangs of Gizelheart for
Whoa,
purging, as well as the Eye of Judgment, so you can just tag things out of the discard pile. And then in Star Alliance, it's got a transporter platform with three subject Kirby's. So on the Star Alliance turn, you can be playing that Infernus and just bouncing it back and let it sit safely in your hand.
nice.
And this is just kind of a really mean, ruthless Archon that will slowly pick apart their deck until there's nothing useful left. And it doesn't like when I play this, I'll play it aggressively. If I got a Fangs of Gizelheart and Champion Naphiel, my creature is the biggest one, she's gone. Like you play it for the pip, you just keep going, just tear
Yeah.
everything up. That's danger hands.
Well, that sounds very dangerous, especially you can purge from all three houses. So that's amazing. That is definition of danger hands. Okay, so what are we gonna get with these prompts? And I wanted to share a little bit because normally just start out with like, what are we gonna see kind of from these prompts? It's angrious, aggressive,
Mhm.
dangerous, bloody, reckless, relentless, surgical, sharp, and angry. And some of the things Ketzer saw: corrupted, cyborg, ominous glow, too many teeth, helmet, mask, maybe mouth hands. So,
Forgot I
um,
wrote that.
what's that?
I said I forgot I wrote that.
Yeah.
The two, maybe mouth hands.
We'll see what we get. But first I started the top row here. This is like Generation Zero, because they didn't really influence later iterations. But the prompt here was Danger Hands, the leader locksmith, corrupted cyborg, ominous glow, too many teeth, helmet, mask, mouth for hands, aggressive, dangerous, bloody, reckless, relentless, surgical, sharp, angry. Um, and the top row here is actually just a straight image or a text image, so not using the Archon art as a starting point. And then the bottom row is using the Archon art as a starting point. So you definitely see some of the themes coming through. The cyborg, the aggressive kind of. They all look very kind of. They're going to be dangerous.
First one kind of looks like Bane. Now that I think about it.
Oh yeah, yeah. Dead Sync says the bottom right is Borderland Nightmare Fuel. Yeah, and Dinobot said, going back one page to the Archon art, is this a crustacean? I definitely can see where you're coming from that. Um, but so moving on to kind of some of the first ones. This is
I think
again.
we did.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say I think we did throw. Yeah, we threw lobster claws in there. Kind of after that first iteration.
Yeah, so we got that crustacean in there. As you can see in the prompt here, lobster claws for hands. Because the mouth for hands wasn't really doing much for us. So then we started getting some lobsters and some kind of claws slash uh, pinchers slash all sorts of crazy stuff. And so kind of these first two pictures were from Gen 1, and there were certain aspects that Ketzer liked, that kind of the theme of kind of what the hands were doing and kind of the face. So kind of copied those together, mashed those up in Photoshop to be the image source for the kind of the second iteration. Dinobot says, "Oh yeah, pincer hands," or "Wow yeah, pincer hands."
Yeah. I thought that fit with the discs as well because the discs kind of have that arthropodic kind of bug-like anatomy to a lot of them.
Yeah, totally. Dead Sink says, "Damn lobster keeps picking my locks and breaking into my house." So then we get to Gen 2 based off of that first mashup. We get some other kind of interesting crustacean plus weird stuff, and then Gen 3 we get some crazy kind of hands. So what do you think about kind of these hands here when we got to Gen 3?
So I started liking how they still have like that kind of crabby feature. And so I feel like that like references the original Archon art pretty well, but I really started liking just the more dangerous aspect of it, like the almost how Edward Scissorhands had
Totally.
just not uniformity amongst all the different blades going on. I really enjoyed that aspect. And then something I really picked up on was that like leather jacket, neon visor, like Tron, Proto Man type vibe. And that I really liked and wanted to keep that in there to kind of reflect the Star Alliance side of the deck.
Oh, nice.
And I thought that was like very like retro spacey to have like those styles of like helmets and leather jacket. So
I
I
love
really
that.
liked those and tried to keep those in.
Yeah, I love that thought. And Dinobot also says, well, these are scary, number one, but then second, they look like cyborg assassins, which kind of matches that kind of feel. Uh,
Yeah, these were all pretty much giving me like the kind of vibes the deck does. Because it does feel pretty mean to play because it just purges so much.
Yeah, and kind of the way that you describe that deck, hey, you purge your own champion, an Alpha Eel, like with those hands, you're gonna
Everything
be
goes.
hurting yourself, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, moving on to Gen 3. One of the things that we didn't kind of really have from the Archon was kind of going back to the Archon art, that these big horns kind of going from each side. And so we tried to add those as
Got it.
in the background. And so I kind of mashed up an image. I didn't show the mashed up image here, but I kind of used that as then the source for future images. And it kind of came out a little bit weird, but also kind of interesting.
Yeah, I wanted that in there. That crescent made me think of the Sanctum side of the deck. And I was thinking that having that as like that back, the wings of light that the Sanctum knights typically have, but having it in kind of like that corrupted red light was a really neat idea. And I like how it picked up on the crustacean vibe. So it is just like two kind of claw pincers imitating the angel wings that the Sanctum would see. And I'm not 100% sure if the Sanctum see this Archon this way, if they're like totally straightforward about this, or maybe like the wings are the only thing that they see.
Yeah, I can see that. Maybe the wings are so bright it overshadows
Hmm,
the what's before it, and so it looks more like an angel
there you go.
or a
There's
spirit.
a there's a scary show on some streaming platform called Midnight Mass, and there's some similar themes there of like terrifying angels actually being terrifying. So I
Awesome.
kind of like that idea. I feel like some Sanctum members might just be in it to persecute without punity.
Oh yeah, I definitely get that feel as well. Dinobot says that's
So
like a Sanctum Spirit Knight turned into a demon, and then
mm, foreshadowing.
Shrike vibes. Yeah, totally. That is good foreshadowing. We're not quite there yet, but moving on to Gen 5, kind of liked the uh, cyborg arms there, so we kind of tried to use some of that.
Yeah,
Um,
it gave me more of the Star Alliance vibes.
and so we kind of mashed up those two images as a source for Gen 6 here. Still kind of have the leather jacket going on. Oh, there's more Dinobot. There's more. And then finally, our final image. Danger Hands, a leader locksmith.
Or yeah, I feel like this really captures a lot of the elements in the icon and gets across the personality of the deck pretty succinctly.
Yeah, I like it. And even though the glow is like a little weird behind it, it does kind of still capture that crustacean vibe. Um, that's interesting. Okay. It's fun to kind of go through the journey on these to get to the final image.
Oh
On
yeah, yeah, I
to
had a blast of these.
good. On to the next deck. PD Pico Feet of the Snappy Avenue.
Hmm. Yeah, this is my first deck that I would consider like a mutant deck. If I remember right, the like ratio is 2/3 of the creatures are mutants, and it doesn't have the Dark Amber Vault, but it's got Tirados, the Mutagenic Serum, Shadowsmith. So it's a Saurian Shadows and Logos deck, and the funny thing about the Saurians is that there aren't actually any dinosaurs in the Saurian house. The only dinosaur is a Shadowsaurus in Shadows.
Oh, that's funny.
Everything else in Saurian is either a beast or a mutant.
That's really
So I really
interesting.
wanted to lean into the mutant vibe with this, and the way that the Archon looks just really helped out with that.
Yeah, and I really love your description of this one, especially kind of this story. A giant, gross, mutated sewer-dwelling slug. It's a shifty underworld crime boss that mostly deals with the mutated criminals and mad scientists, but has a lot of secret political influence.
Mm.
I love that flavor.
Yeah, this is another one that might make it into the comics at some point,
Ooh, I would love to see that. Dead Sink
especially
says,
after we
"Oh,
got that final art.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah."
Yeah.
Dead Sink says, "Wow, that is a wild Archon art in general." And Dinobot says that Archon is really cool by itself. Yeah, well, that's good because the AI art we molded it into something pretty quick, and so we didn't share kind of all the steps that we went through to get to the final image of this one. But here we go, and before we do, we'll get to some of the other descriptions that he had, even though we talked about kind of the flavor there. Personality, mutated, swollen, shifty, shadowy, fluid, deceptive, quick. And then kind of what Ketzer sees a slug body, sewer dwelling, crown of dark ember, blue crystals, and one huge mesmerizing eye. Which all of those things I think you kind of see directly in the Archon art, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so moving on. So we took that and we iterated a whole bunch of times, and this is what we came up with.
Oh yeah. I think it's a real fun way to represent an Archon in a non anthropomorphic way, like a non-human kind of way.
I agree, and I really love how this one came out and how, I mean, we went through several iterations on this one too, but how kind of how well it really matched Archon art. We kind of have the eye that matches a big kind of circle in the top, the crown. We have the body that is kind of slug-like that matches the kind of swirls in the Archon art. It just I love kind of how it came out.
Yeah, and it even captures that like dingy kind of sewer vibe. If anybody has ever played the first Fallout game, it reminds me of the final boss of the first Fallout game.
The 2D one.
Hmm.
Yeah, nice. Um, so yeah, that's PD Pico Feed of the Stepping Avenue, and that's super exciting that that actually might show up in the comics as well. That would be fun to see.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to really practice that one a few times and get a style down for it.
Well, I mean, hopefully, like you were saying before, hopefully Keyforge again. This is like you said, the Renaissance. You said that on the
Hmm.
24-hour stream. Keyforge is
I
coming
say
back.
I think I'd say it everywhere.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It seems like there's so much good going on now, and with Ghost Galaxy bringing it back, that hopefully the future is kind of very bright and has lots of room for a lot of kind of, you know, hopefully people start following you more because you're putting out really great content that's totally different than anybody else is putting out. And yeah.
Keyforge is very inspiring to me. Um, I went through a number of years of really not creating anything, and then getting back into this game just really kind of helped rekindle that fire.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it's partially selfish, therapeutic causes.
Nice. Hey, well, that works. All right.
Yeah.
And then finally, the last one from Ketzer, but not our last Archon. we have the grotesque soldier juggler.
Mm. Yeah, I think our process for this one was unique compared to the other ones, or had a unique ending, I guess. But I really like this deck. This is a Dark Tidings deck, and it's the first Whirlpool deck that I got, and it almost just checked all the boxes that I was looking for in a Whirlpool deck. Because rather than going the approach of just capturing a bunch of amber on a creature and sending it over and killing it, I like the idea of taking my opponent's creatures when maybe we don't have any matching houses, but still being able to use their creatures without interrupting my flow. And so this deck actually has a lot of different house cheating. If I kind of go through here, we've got a Decadence, three Magister Vitas, two Teresas, and two Diplomat Agungs.
Oh wow.
Um, and so it's got a lot to just kind of cheese out your opponent's creatures on your own turn. And the fact that it's named the Grotesque Soldier Juggler and it's a Whirlpool deck, like it fits so well.
That's so
Um,
cool.
so this is this is one of my favorite Dark Tidings decks, and the Archon kind of lends to it. You know, it's got that kind of uh, twisting motion of the floppy appendages. And it's got that kind of arc with the little circles kind of going in a juggler motion. I feel like a lot of stars aligned on this deck, and so I really wanted to see what kind of image would come out of it with all of that in mind.
Definitely. And Dead Sing Dead Sing says, well, this can only wind up terrifying based on the Archon name, which I understand. But if you read kind of how Ketzer described it, occult, alien, deep ocean, juggling orbs or capsules, many armed, standing in a whirlpool, and then one that I think actually affected the generation a lot, silly.
Yeah, it's a very fun deck, and I wanted it to look like a fun Archon. Like it's just out there having a good time. It doesn't really so much care about winning.
Yeah, and I think what we resulted with was actually matches that pretty good. And so this one was actually a text to image, so it's not purple. And here it is. Um, and yeah, what did you like about this one?
I like it's standing in the middle of the whirlpool, like really getting out there in the fun. And then it's got all these like little bubbles that it's kind of pushing around. And I don't think this deck actually has bubbles in it, which is kind of a shame. But it kind of reminds me of Bubbles, how they just have all those Saurians encapsulated.
Yeah,
And so this Archon's just having a fun time, just slinging things around, manipulating things. It's absolutely huge. Some of them looked a bit sillier, but like kind of too silly.
yeah,
Um, but I feel like this one just like, and it somehow ended up mirroring the Archon art in some instances in a lot of ways, which was kind of interesting. And it kept the purple color in there in an aspect. Um, this one just like really stood out to me. Like we did the image to image ones, and they came out kind of similar, but a lot of them looked a little bit too serious and not quite
yeah.
playful enough.
Nice. Dead Sink says it's totally having a good time. Yeah. So and that I really like this one also because, like you said before, like these archons can appear like anything, and like you said, different things to different people or whatever. But I like kind of looking at a totally different style of archon while still matching the archon art. And you articulated very well, kind of matching a lot of the cool stuff going on in the deck, which is even more neat.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time thinking about the personality of my deck.
Awesome. Okay, so we had a lot of good fun going through those, but I thought, okay, we had one of mine, we had some of Ketzer's, but that can't be everything. Let's get some from some of
No.
our longtime viewers. So we started with a couple from Dinobot. First, we're starting with Venus Whispering Bolt Hole Chef. And here was Dinobot's description: skilled cook and computer networking engineer, controversial methods, eccentric, and usually fiddling with some new recipe or gadget. And then for the style, I asked
Hmm.
about this. Um, oh, you're gonna have to. I forget again how to pronunciate that. um,
Oh,
the,
I think it's Basque.
yeah, Basque. Um, so the artist Basque had a
I might be wrong.
strong influence on this. And then realistic, cyberpunk, and futuristic. And so we did some iteration. We got to kind of Dinobot had the influence of the Basque, and that really influenced a lot the final image here, uh, which is this. And so the prompt was Venus cyberpunk chef sitting at a desk, art by Basque. And we did get a little bit of kind of chef action here. We got the chef hat, um, and we actually went through uh, a decent number of these, not a ton, but this was the one that Dinobot said that this is it, this is it. So, and what I really liked about this was totally different kind of style than the rest of them,
Mm. Oh yeah.
which really matches kind of what you've said about kind of archons and how they present themselves as well. So, moving on to the next one by Dinobot, the noble that throws away ash. And this was Dinobot's description: cold and calculating, very ambitious and talented. Used to work in law, but got bored and quit. Uses his extreme wealth to tour the world, looking for challenges and rivals, and gets into more trouble than he can handle. Likes private jets and expensive watches. Smokes, which is why it throws away ash. And the style: realistic, cyberpunk, and futuristic. So this one, here's a prompt. A cyberpunk noble person holds a smoking cigarette in front of a cyberpunk castle. Futuristic, realistic, diffuse lighting, intricate, elegant, highly detailed, lifelike, photorealistic, digital painting, art station illustration, concept art, smooth, sharp focus, art by John Collier and Albert Oble and Krentz Kuchart and Skunkfly and Alphonse Mucha. So with all that, and we actually went through a lot of iterations on this one too, and some mashing up to make sure that we kind of got the right aspects that he was looking for, specifically kind of the futuristic castle in the background. But then one of the things that I really liked that Dinobot was looking for was kind of this was the noble that throws away ash. And so we got the castle, but it's smoking, they're smoking, and there's like the cigarette and the smoke, but kind of like what Dinobot mentioned, and I agree, it also has kind of like the smoke in the background and kind of like the whole feeling of kind of the image kind of matches it pretty well.
Yeah, no, I liked a lot of this one. Um, I like the ones that give you a little bit of background and a little bit of setting.
Yeah.
Uh, this one, I really want to see where this is on the Crucible.
mm,
I
that's
want to see what's going on here.
that's a very interesting thought. DeadSync says this feels like cover art for a video game I'd want to play.
Yeah, this does look like if I were playing the Crucible RPG, this feels like somebody I would run into that's like a helpful guide and that kind of like sets me on my way a little bit, like sets the party on an adventure, and then kind
Oh,
of is
totally.
revealed at the end to actually be an archon.
Totally. I could see them giving out almost like a quest giver. Um, yeah. All right. Um, the other viewer that we had at Archon was Fudgenator, aka Murph. And from Murph we had the Archon Vervet or Verve, the Sorcerer Librarian. And Murph had a really good description here. A feminine presenting being that wears a billowy cloak like a dusky purple, dark gray, with the hood drawn halfway up on the head, long hair, probably in some form of loose braid, holding an open book, a tome, if you will. Looking off in the distance, over the tome, underneath a roiling sky of red, black and purple storm clouds that churn above her as purple bolts of lightning can be seen arcing behind her in the distance. I imagine the clothes underneath to be a bit iridescent between a dark, deep green, purple, and black, visually similar to the nightingale armor from Skyrim. They're stoic, powerful, tempestuous/stormy, determined, bold, and intelligent. And the process that we did here with Murph, we actually looked at a bunch of different styles, um, and a lot weren't really matching what Murph was thinking of. But one of the things that he kind of narrowed in a little bit later was trying to have a kind of Dutch fine art, like a la Rembrandt feel for the character. And so we got a little bit of that. It's not like it's not dialed up to 10 or 11, but we got a little bit of that, I think, in the character. The background is a little bit different. I think we did get kind of the roiling red kind of storm coming through with the lightning. Um, and then we got this sorcerer holding kind of a ball of light looking over their tome at the storm. So it was kind of really fun to kind of go through kind of some of the aspects that Murph was looking for and trying to get him into this Archon image.
Yeah, I really like the figure there in the foreground and the prompting of kind of like that Northern Renaissance style. I think it really captured kind of that. First of all, that pose. I think that pose. I'm trying to think of the specific painting. It's like
Hmm.
in my head. And I can't think of what it's called or who the author is, but they do have those kind of like drawn back foreheads with the hats that come up
Oh
and
yeah,
the cloth and the fabric that just kind of drapes a little bit heavy like that. Like it kind of gets those feels.
yeah. Dinobot says MTG, which I assume is Magic the Gathering, Lightning Bolt art. I actually don't know Magic the Gathering at all, so I'm assuming there's a card maybe called Lightning Bolt that has similar art for the Lightning Bolt. I don't know, but
I also know very little about Magic. I came to Keyforge through Yu-Gi-Oh.
nice, nice. Oh, Dinobot says, yep. Dead Sync says, I don't know MTG very much, but I got a similar vibe. Yeah. All right. So those are our Archons, but we also wanted to see this one from a image to image. Um, and so this was just taking the other one was really going from text and it was mashing up kind of all the different aspects that Murph wanted to see. This one took the straight Archon art and using also the text, the Sorcerer Librarian, magnificent, elegant, beautiful, dynamic lighting, a lot of similar stuff to what we had before. Um, and we got kind of our library here for our Sorcerer Librarian. And I kind of also like how some of the architecture matches the Archon art as well.
Yeah, yeah. This one was giving me the impression that the Archon isn't just the figure, but possibly like the library itself. Like the Archon is a library and is just referred to as the librarian.
I love that uh, that story. I mean, that's like you could write like a whole tome of books about like an archon like that. I love it. Okay. So the other thing that I wanted to try, because we're talking about archons, we're talking about a bunch of different art styles. What I did was actually took a whole bunch of archons that I thought had interesting names from my collection. And then I took a whole bunch of different art styles. And I started out and I went too crazy. So it's like 11 different archons, and this was like 31 different art styles. And I was like, whoa, that's too much. Let's narrow down a little bit. And so here's what I narrowed it down to. Here are my archons: the human that cracks humanity, the working prison minstrel, she who sabotages engineering, the hero of saurians, the ogre that repairs labs, the strategic geologist, warlord revenge stabber mauler, the architect that betrays clocks, it that photographs body parts, he that openly kicks over chaos, and the magician that utilizes prehistory. So I thought those were very interesting kind of Archon names that might give us some weird Archon art. And then I combine that with a whole bunch of different art styles: retro comic, Art Deco, avant garde, Bauhaus, Edvard Munch, neoclassicism, pop art, classic Greek sculpture, movie poster, cell shading, side scroller, manga, Art Nouveau, Baroque, digital art, futurism, neon art, street art, video game art, pixel art, rotoscoping, and first person shooter. And I created one giant, this is like we're going to dig into this in a higher resolution, but this was kind of the matrix that it formed of all the archons listed down the left side and all the art styles listed on the top. So every column here is an art style, every row is an archon. So let's kind of dig into some of the cool things here that I came up with. Um, let's get it up, and it'll take a little bit to load this because this is like a super huge image. I think it's like 140 megabytes. And so first we're going to start out near Revenge, Warlord Revenge Stabber Mauler and the Strategic Geologist, because I think Warlord Revenge Stabber Mauler, because the description is so visceral and so um, violent, it came up with like some really cool art that matched that really well. And then we also have the strategic geologist, which is like kind of weird. So it's interesting to contrast those two styles as we kind of go through some of these art. Um, so we'll just kind of slowly kind of go through some of these. I'll point out some of the interesting ones. I love kind of uh, this one here. It's on the far left now. And let's check out the art style real quick. It's Art Nouveau. Um, the geologist is kind of like looking back, and it almost looks like there's a bunch of different rock layers, and the strategic geologist is strategizing how to kind of study these rock layers. um,
Yeah, no, I really liked a lot of the ones that came out, particularly the War Master. Like it had a lot of really fun interpretations through here.
it did. Um, you can see kind of, let's see, this comparing kind of the avant-garde, which is the one on the left here, to the modern art, which is the second to right. For the avant-garde one, you almost have kind of like a kiss mask, but it's kind of, they both have almost what I feel is almost kind of like an Asian theme, almost like a Japanese, samurai warlord, but they're still, the styles are kind of like different. Um, and we'll get to kind of the Edvard Munch ones because they're a lot more interesting on different ones. And we'll go through that whole column because it's interesting how some just kind of look like the Scream, but some actually look like in the style of Edvard Munch, kind of what the Archon might actually be looking like. So kind of going through some of these other ones of Warlord, Revenge Stabber, Mauler, and the Strategic Geologist. We get to on the right here the Greek sculptor, and these are always also fun to look through. Kind of how would this look like in kind of a classical Greek sculpture? And I kind of like again the strategic geologist. It's almost like this geologist in the middle, and all like the way that I envisioned it is this whole circle surrounding this geologist might be like kind of different rock layers that it's thinking about.
When I saw the category that was the statue representations, it made me think of a deck that I have that's named The Woman That Defies Marble.
Whoa, that'd be
So I like
perfect.
to think of her as having such a fluid figure that nobody can actually sculpt it out of marble.
Oh, I love that. Okay, moving over to more of the different art styles. Takes a little while to load. Um, yeah, these last couple ones here, let's see what they are. I forget. We have, I think, yeah, side scroller and rotoscoping. I kind of like here,
Yeah,
especially.
side scroller.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Side scroller just had a lot of them all the way through. Were really cool. I thought that was one of the cooler art styles.
Yeah, well, so we can definitely go through those, and you can point out kind of some of the things that stood out to you. But I kind of, on this rotoscoping, which I'm not, yeah, I don't know, but I love kind of the look of this um Revenge Stabber, Warlord Revenge Stabber Mauler here. It's a very kind of artistic style. And even the character itself has like a lot of personality coming through. It looks like it's wearing sunglasses kind of under this armor, which I thought that was pretty funny and pretty cool. But then it's got like this, yeah, kind of mauling weapon.
Ready for battle.
Definitely. Dinobot says, I like the abstract ones. Yeah, some of those come out good. I'm gonna move over and go through the Edvard Munch ones because, like, some of them, like I said before, some of them just look like kind of a variation of the Scream, which wasn't that exciting. But some of them I thought came out really good, specifically like the second, third, and it's either I think it's the fifth one. The second one here is the Working Prison Minstrel, and I just love the style of this art. I love the expression of this working prison minstrel. And I also love kind of the color scheme on it. I thought it came out great.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of really interesting colored. Uh, I don't know if I could call it decisions. The algorithm. Uh, yeah. However these colors came together. A lot of really interesting combinations.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I did put in the prompt, I think it was vivid colors or something like vivid. I forget exactly the term. And so that might
Hmm.
have driven some of it. Besides that, there wasn't anything kind of specific around the coloring. So it was interesting how there was a lot of bright kind of coloring and but this second row here in the Edvard Munch column um, is she who sabotages engineering, and I like this one because it almost looks like she's like looking down on this engineering complex and like working out how it's being sabotaged. And you might even think like, oh, it's orange and almost looks like there might be stylistic fire going on, or maybe this like river is already kind of like sabotaging it. I mean, there could be like a lot of different things going on here, so I kind of like I love like the way that it looked and kind of all the different ways that it could be interpreted.
Yeah, for sure.
Moving on, uh, pausing for a second. This one here on the left, this was the Hero of Saurians, and this art style was digital art. I also love how this came out. It does look almost like a superhero, with like the Saurians in the background, and even the superhero itself looks kind of has Saurian type aspects. Super muscular, kind of like a scaly kind of skin. It kind of really matched it perfectly.
Yeah, maybe one day we'll get a superhero house,
Oh yeah,
kind of
maybe.
like a comic book style uh, Keyforge house. Because I have a theory that a lot of the houses are based on various nerd subcultures,
Yeah, I agree with that.
or at least they seem to line up with a lot of different nerd subcultures or different genres of like things people would consider to be nerdy.
Yeah,
So comics is one of the ones that hasn't quite been hit yet as a whole house identity.
yeah, I agree with that. Dinobot says, "Whoa, that dragon bird," and I'm not even sure which one you mean. I'm guessing it's either this futurism or classicism one of these middle two here now. Um, but yeah, there's like something for everyone in like all these different art styles and all these different archons, I think. The black one with the
Yeah, I
blue
looked over
border.
all of these.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of variety in here.
Yeah, for sure. Going back to the Edvard Munch, I really like this one. It's kind of funny. This middle one is the ogre that repairs labs, and it almost looks like this ogre, this Edvard Munch style ogre that's it almost he almost looks like quite concerned, like, oh my goodness, this lab is really messed up, and I don't know about this. Very concerned about being able to repair this lab. But yeah, most of the rest of the Edvard Munch were either versions of Scream or kind of interesting portrait styles. So let's head over to the side scrolling because you had mentioned that one, and I love this top one. Um, let's see.
Yeah. So there were some of these that made me think of like art for video game covers back in like the 90s,
Yeah,
like things you would see on like Sega Genesis and old SNES covers, where the art
definitely.
just like completely doesn't look like what you're getting in the actual game. Atari also. Atari had some wild
Oh yeah,
uh art art styles on the game, and it's just pixels. It's blocked.
right. And this first one, just as a reminder, this is the human that cracks humanity. So yeah, I definitely kind of you got like a lot of different types of humanity here, but yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It's like from the cover, it's like what does that really mean? And like I totally get you from that those video games where it's like the cover had nothing to do with the game. Uh, but yeah, it was cool to see. Moving down into some more of these scrolling ones. We got the Hero of Saurians here, the ogre that repairs labs. This is a strategic geologist again, revenge or warlord, revenge stabber mauler. This
I
is
thought
the
Revenge Stabbers looked pretty great. It almost looks like a Warhammer
oh yeah.
uh, type of illustration.
Below that is the architect that betrays clocks, and I didn't mention it before, but this bottom right one here, I actually really liked of the architect that betrays clocks, and this is actually in this the style is supposed to be first person shooter. A lot of these didn't really come out as first person shooter, but it's definitely looks like somebody trying to betray a clock there. So
A
pretty
lot of that,
literal.
a lot of that Archon's iterations kind of made me think of BioShock. They give me a lot of those like I think it's
Mm.
Art Nouveau kind of vibe,
Yeah, yeah.
or that what is it? Futurism maybe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Art
Yeah.
Nouveau futurism almost. A few more of the side scrollers here. Oh, we got to go through this row. This was another row that I like. The second to bottom row here. Let's just start from the beginning. This
Mm-hmm.
was the one who kicks over chaos. And let's have it load up here. Or he that openly kicks over chaos, actually. And there's a lot of great kicks in here. So obviously the first one is kind of like the straight comic book art. And it's
What if
almost
Superman but bad?
yeah, exactly. Um the second one is a manga art one. Um this section here, these four here I really like. Let's go up and see exactly what they are again because I forget. Avant-garde, Baroque, Bauhaus, and digital art. And I have a lot to say actually about the digital art one, but I kind of love like each of these in their own way are showing. I think what this archon name really helped convey was action. Like he that openly kicks over chaos, it was
Mm-hmm.
like I need this like dramatic action that like openly kicks, and so you see that in a lot of the art.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of angles.
Yeah,
That really gets the dynamic feel across. The one I like out of this row a lot is that kind of white one with the red right in the middle. I think that's Bauhaus.
yeah.
Yeah, that one gives me it kind of reminds me of Beautiful Joe.
Oh yeah, totally. That's a good feel. Now, what I liked about this digital art one, even though I don't really see it matching the name that well, but what I saw out of this was that to me this is like this weird mutated version of Wild Wormhole. Like this looks to me like all these like heroes or archons or creatures or beings or things falling from like this wormhole, and you can see this one is like just like screaming, like falling from this chaos, and I just love like this picture, and it made me immediately think of Wild Wormhole.
Oh yeah. Wet war nope, not coming up with a good name for that.
um Looking at some of these others here, of he that openly kicks over chaos. Yeah, I really like this row. This was one of the rows that came out the best. Um, Lots of action.
Sorry about my squeaky chair, everybody.
Okay. Any other kind of areas that you wanted to take a specific look at?
There are a few ideas I had or things to point out, but now I had forgotten where they were at.
Okay. I did like a lot of these. I mean, I like most of them, but the she that sabotages engineering. A lot of these were also pretty interesting to look at. We'll just go through them slowly, just because they're fun and interesting. Um, I mean, this one definitely, this one in the middle here. Let's see what style is it? Movie poster style. Definitely looks like a spy style. Um,
I always think it's interesting when the AI art tries to do text in an image
yeah.
because it almost looks readable, but not quite.
Yep. And going back to the she who sabotages engineering, you get kind of a little bit of the she, and then yeah, it's just like a bunch of weird random characters together, and sometimes they're not even letters, but they look like a letter. Yeah, it's very interesting what comes out of that.
Jeez.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
You
We'll
could
just.
probably use some of those for like um just like crucible languages to decorate around. Just let the AI come up with some wild symbols. Just put them up as a billboard.
Ooh, I like that. Go through the rest of She Who Sabotages Engineering. A lot of those came out actually really good.
Yeah, it gives me some Cold War spy type
Yeah,
uh impression.
I can see that. Good. Okay. Let me fix my light really quick. So with that, I just thought it was really fun. Um, kind of trying to look at a bunch of different archons and a bunch of different art styles at the same time, and just seeing what it would do. And the interesting part about all of these art is these were one-offs. So unlike a lot of what we did with the other archon arts, where we iterated a bunch, we took certain specific aspects that we liked, we mashed them together. These were all one-offs, and so this is just no kind of iteration or anything. Just this is what the AI generated, and I think I mentioned it before. Like you run these a bunch of times, and for the same exact prompt, the same exact art and archon, some of them will be awesome, some of them will be bad. You do it again, and it'll be totally opposite. The ones that were good were now bad, and the ones were bad are now good. And so there's definitely a lot of variability. And so if you aim to do something like this, I recommend try a whole bunch of stuff and see what you like, and then just lean into that. And don't just give it a one off because it might not be good.
Don't get discouraged.
Yeah. Okay. Back to presentation. So I called this the Ketzer's Art Lore Grab Bag. And actually, here I included one of Ketzer's paintings.
Yeah, that was one I did recently on my YouTube. It was kind of the starting bit of a segment I want to call Ambercraft. And that's just coming up with different fun things people can do at home to have little projects that are kind of Keyforge related, that you can make things that you can hang on your house, hang on your walls. Um, I got maybe some ideas coming down the line of some like wearable things. Uh,
Ooh,
they could be like accessories or cosplay pieces.
I love that.
I want to do some ideas like a tutorial on like making counters or like making keys, that sort of thing. Some stuff you can use in the game. Um, yeah, I got a lot of ideas. Some of the things I'm still kind of working out and figuring out a good, affordable process that people don't have to have specialized equipment for.
I love that. All those ideas are super great, and make sure you check out his YouTube for um his painting tutorial because like I want to actually go through that with my kids. I'm not sure if they'll make it through the whole thing, but even if at the start, like Ketzer starts out with the basics, and so it's really helpful of understanding just like here's all you need to get going, and so it's like something that pretty much anybody can do, and yeah, I love
Yeah,
how you approach that.
it recently became my job. So that's actually what I do is I do like different landscape paintings and stuff. Like today I taught a class that was painting a truck with a bunch of hay and pumpkins in the back for fall times.
Nice.
Monday I did like a really cool like red sunset pirate ship, like a pirate ghost ship silhouette on the horizon. Um, and it's kind of the same process. I try to make it like as easy to understand without knowing any kind of technical stuff about art, really. Um, and like we say there, it's fun art, not fine art. So, don't beat yourself up over it. It's just a fun little thing to spend some time together.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love it. It's really good content. We'll share those links again at the end, but make sure to check it out. So moving on to some of the cool stuff that you'd like to share from the art.
Yeah, so there's with like a lot of card games, they'll pack little bits of lore into the artwork. If anybody's a fan of Yu-Gi-Oh, that's basically how all of the story comes across is just through artwork and card names. There's no flavor text on almost any of those cards except
Huh.
for a handful of vanillas that they make nowadays. They do have like some lore and stuff other places, and like the game version has been getting better about presenting it. But some of these things, I like to find little hints that the artists left behind to kind of tie things together in the world. And so I thought I'd take us through some that are particular to House Dis, because this isn't coming back for the next set. We lost it for Dark Tidings, which I love Unfathomable. I think they're really cool. Still don't have a lot of lore about them yet, so I'll try to dig in and get some juicy stuff on those. Uh, but we do have, what is it, 4 sets of Dis to look at.
Yep.
Um, and so here's some neat stuff that I've found, and some other people have like pointed out some of these things before. So shout out to Amber Meaties. Amber Meaties found this concept art like I did. It's in the top center. The concept art page has a little string of symbols, and some of the artists took those symbols and actually worked them into the paintings. Um, the easiest one to see is Dominator Bobble. Like that one's pretty obvious. And then the other one that I have right above Dominator Bottle, up at the top left there, is Nefru. And the interesting thing I think about Nefru compared to these other ones is in the art for Nefru, these symbols are in neon. And if you look at some of the graffiti that's on the wall there, it doesn't really show up in the card art. The graffiti on the wall is kind of in the expanded art that I pulled out here. But the neon kind of implies to me that the demons didn't really make it. Somebody in shadows probably made this. And when I look at a lot of the places that these particular string of symbols pop up in, um, there's a lot of things that do with kind of binding, like the Screaming Cave kind of implies or gives me the thought of something you want to keep things in there or kind of attract things to be in there. The one in the bottom right is Yerk, and the one in the bottom middle is Ortanu the Chained. And the one that I think is fun about Yerk is because Yerk, Old Yerk, and Ancient Yerk all have quotes from Iona the Demonologist that I put up here in the middle. They aren't that bad if you can pay their price, and that kind of like suggests like up here in the neon glow, like maybe these are kind of things that you can use to control the demons a little bit. Because the thing is, they're not language, right? Uh, the demons of Dis don't communicate through any kind of written language or vocal sounds or telepathy or gestures. The only thing that can really communicate with them are the archons, and nobody really understands that. So these symbols show up, but the symbols aren't a language. I think they have some kind of a power. And Iona kind of suggests that over time, uh, maybe working out deals with these demons isn't quite, as control oriented as maybe they thought.
Yeah, the progression of those quotes is pretty interesting. They aren't that bad if you can pay their price, and then as they get older, they get meaner, and then I no longer know who serves whom.
Yeah. And when I first looked at Old Yerk and Ancient Yerk, They do also have some symbols on them, but they're a little bit altered, and I kind of didn't recognize them as these same symbols until we were looking at it yesterday. And you kind of pointed out that some of those symbols are maybe like a little bit flipped or mirrored in some of the other cards.
Yeah. But also, like you said, some of them also do appear to be altered. So it almost is like they're getting even more corrupted or changing over time.
Yeah, maybe they're changing the terms of the whatever kind of pact or price is going on there.
Yeah.
There's some other discards that also have symbols. Like Binding Irons and Unlocked Gateway have some symbols that don't quite match these ones. And Fair Game also has some symbols, but there's actually a good short story about that one that you should check out. It was one of the official short stories for each house, and you can find those online. They used to be on FFG's website. I don't know if they still are, but I think Archon Arcana saved them.
Awesome. So check out Arcana Arcana for the lore, the fair game story.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And that's one thing I know that people have been asking Ghost Galaxy about. Are we going to get some more stories, some more lore, especially for some of the new houses that we don't have it of yet?
Hey, Ghost Galaxy, if you're listening, hit me up. I'll write you some juicy, unfathomable stories.
I will have to ping them about that. And you should ping them on their contact page, but I might have to.
I'm working on I'm working on an email to send them, but I kind of want to let them get some stuff off their plates first and not bother them about the lore so much when they're trying to get the physical card game back.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I'm also not quite sure what I want to say or how I want to say it without coming off as being like too arrogant,
Sure.
you know. I don't actually think that I'm like that amazing of a writer or a creator or anything, you know. I do my best and I have fun with what I do, but the people that get paid to do the art get paid for a reason. The work is amazing in this game.
Yeah. Yeah. It's nice, and it's also nice to have someone with that uh really good eye like yourself to point out some of these things. Um, shall we move on to the next one?
Yeah, we can roll on to the next one.
The
Okay.
Sins.
For this one we got the Seven Sins. And this is something not everybody knows, but some people have already figured it out and kind of pointed it out. But something that ties all of these sins together is that they have a common element or common elements within all of the shared artwork. People have pointed out before that each of the sins, somewhere in the painting, has an orb of Invidious. And on the next slide, I've got those highlighted, but I've also highlighted something else that I noticed is present in all of these artworks that I think has some more interesting implications.
And Dead
You want
Sync says he's got to hop off for the night, but this was a real awesome stream.
to
Thanks so much for the sub as well, Dead Sync.
have a good
Thank,
night.
yeah,
Thanks
have a
for
good night.
stopping in.
Yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll have the full video on YouTube as well. So go to the
Mhm.
next slide.
Yeah, so going to the next one, I've highlighted out here the red spots where you can see all of the orbs, but I've also highlighted out the open eye symbol of House Sanctum in every single one of these artworks. And some of them might be impossible to see on the cards. I actually haven't looked at my Sins deck to see if I can see them on the card. But these are like the full arts that I grabbed from the artist's Instagram. And so they've got like a little bit less cropped out. And you can actually see if you get pretty close in there, these are actually like sanctum ruins that the discs are holed up in. And it's like a similar cathedral type architecture between all seven of the cards. And I didn't really include it on here because I couldn't find the full artwork, but Stirring Grave, same artist, and also has kind of that same cathedral uh, background with the sanctum symbols on the graves.
Yeah, and I love I love this find just because there's been a lot of talk about kind of how Dis and Sanctum, they talk about it, I think, in the lore, um, and the fact that all these sins are kind of in this building where there's all these Sanctum symbols, and it makes you think, like, okay, what happened here? We
Yeah,
see like it looks like down in Desire, which is second to bottom on the left, what look like tombstones, and so yeah, what happened here now that all these sins are kind of inhabiting this Sanctum Cathedral?
yeah, it certainly feels like a short story waiting to be written.
Definitely.
Right. But yeah, that was another fun thing I wanted to point out. Um, I feel like the Orb of Invidious thing is like a fun one that some people have pointed out before, but I've never heard anybody mention those little sanctum symbols uh, that are all over the background.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that takes us into some more interplay between Sanctum and Dis.
Yes. Segueing in and going back, what was it? Dinobot made this foreshadow earlier. I didn't
Right.
talk to Dinobot about this, so fun coincidence. But so we have a couple of knights in Dis, and I always think it's interesting when you have those traits that cross over. I don't have an explanation for the knights in Brobnar, so I won't be getting to that today. But for the knights in Dis, I do have some ideas of why we have those there. The first one kind of comes out of the Secrets of the Crucible, the RPG source book, and there's a little section where it gives you like a stat block and some background on the terror, but it doesn't tell you exactly what the terror is. So I've got like a little block of text up here where it explains that some legends say that it was somebody in Hub City who was a gambler and gambled with the wrong demon. I think that might be a reference to a fair game, but I don't think the terror was a gambler. Others say that they once were a knight of the Church of the Opened Eye who fell from grace and got taken in by demons. That one I also don't think is the terror, but that one I'll come back to in a second. The third suggestion for the terror is that a devout sanctum knight attempted to reform a demon and tried to kind of teach them knightly ways. And I think that's where we get the terror, because the flavor text here is from Champion Anathiel of I once thought that these creatures could be redeemed. Now I know better. And when we look at the terror, it actually has some elements like on the shoulder of that sanctum armor, like the light projectors that kind of put those light formed wings coming out. But for whatever reason, the terror's light wings are broken and short. So it doesn't quite have that projection there. It's also the only demon that I can think of that has a shield. And when you look down at the scythe isn't actually its hand. Like a lot of demons will just straight up have an arm or a hand as a blade, but it's actually holding a weapon. Like it would be wielding it like a knight weapon. And so I think that the terror is a demon that somebody tried to turn into a knight.
Yeah, and I love how you've identified some of those features of the art, like it almost looks like a shattered um projection of those wings, and now the discolored, and then the holding of that weapon. And I'll go really quick back a couple slides to um Envy here, which is on the bottom row, the second to the right, which does have kind of one of those same type of weapons, but part of its appendage. But you're I love kind of how you've pointed out. Yeah, it's really just holding on to the weapon, unlike, and Envy was just one example. There's a lot of different kind of creatures in discs that have that same kind of appendage. But so this,
Yeah,
it's very interesting that this is different.
and there are other demons that hold weapons. Like I think it's Dexus holds like a whip or a cat of nine tails. Um, so that's like not the full evidence there, but I think there is like enough there between like the quote from Champion and Aphiel and kind of the rumors surrounding what it is that I think that kind of explains why it might be a knight. But amongst those rumors, there was one about a knight that fell from grace and was taken in by demons. And I think that actually could help explain Onyx Knight. Because when you look at Onyx Knight, it has like that full plate armor, like a Sanctum, like Sanctum has. And it doesn't really have the kind of proportions or body structure that demons typically have, where it's like all weird and jointed and lanky. The other thing is that interestingly, Onyx Knight is missing like that one plate of armor there on the arm, and you can kind of see where it's just pink energy coming out of there and wielding the weapon.
Yeah.
So I feel like this was actually a spirit Sanctum Knight that kind of like got corrupted, fell from grace, fell in with demons, however it happened, and actually started out as a Sanctum Knight that went into Dis. And the contrast against the Opal Knight on the other side of the full art, which I didn't really include, but the two cards together actually come from a full art of this like grand battlefield with Sanctum Knights and demons from Dis like fighting in the background on both sides. And I think that's a good way to explain why that knight is in Dis.
Yeah, and
I
I
think the
also,
terrors.
oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I think the Terror started out a demon and gained some knighthood, and I think Onyx Knight started as a knight and lost their spirit status to become considered a demon instead.
Yeah, and I know when we talked before, you also pointed out that even the weapon of Onyx Knight has kind of the same kind of feel as a Sanctum weapon, like kind of a glowing blade. Normally, of course, in kind of yellow for Sanctum, but here in the disc color.
Mm. Right, thank you for reminding me.
Yeah, and Fudgeonator, aka Murph, also says those pink spots on the armor remind me of the shadows hexes you often see as well, like in guard disguise.
Mm.
But both Dinobot and Murph say, I think you solved the case. Uh, Fudgeonator specifically said Detective Ketzer has definitely solved this one.
And
Yeah.
I thought I was onto something. Just to throw it back to the Brobnar Knights, I thought I was onto something for a minute when I noticed that the Terror kind of had a shield. Because one of the Brobnar Knights, I believe, is Heb the Huge, and I
Yeah.
think Heb the Huge has like a hammer in one hand and a shield in the other hand, and I think it's the only Brobnar I can think of that has a shield.
Hmm.
And so for a minute, I thought, well, maybe the shield makes them a knight, and the Brobnar called them a knight as like a derogatory term because you're a coward who needs a shield and extra armor. Um, but then I noticed there was another knight in Brobnar, and I can't remember which one it is, but that it doesn't track the same way. So I have to come up with another reason why there's two knights in Brobnar.
Yeah. Another case to
Is
solve
it
in the future.
is it Bramo? It might be Bramo. I'll look it up on Arcana later.
Yeah. So yeah, that's really cool insights and thanks for sharing that. And I love how this is just like a few examples and kind of I'm sure there's so many kind of stories like this within all the art um and kind of all the
Oh
lore
yeah,
within
I
Keyforge.
I try to dip into that every now and then on my Instagram. Um, so if you have an Instagram, you can follow me on there at Ace of Keys. We'll have those links. And yeah, I just jump into stuff like this a lot of the times.
Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, Dinobot confirmed. Yep, Bramo is a knight.
Okay, cool.
Murph says the trees are Bramo's shield and weapon. Okay, so um, thanks so much for sharing kind of all your insight on that. But kind of some of the questions that we had for you. Um, one is what is
Shoot.
next for your comics?
Okay, so the next thing for my comics, I've been in a bit of a pause for a while, and I kind of substituted in some of that for Inktober for a bit. I was doing well, so before Inktober, we had the Kickstart campaign, not Kickstart, the crowdfunding on
Yeah.
GameFound. And so I wanted to do some illustration type stuff for that. You showed one of them earlier. I had the colored pencil drawing,
Hmm.
sorry, of a like a Gatrukia, and I did a few other ones like when Unchained decks were unleashed. I had a Brobnar kind of like biting a chain into pieces, uh,
Yeah.
and so I tried to do some fun stuff like that, um, just to get people hyped, just to let Ghost Galaxy know that people were that excited that they would be making little fan arts and stuff like that. Um, and then after that, Inktober came around, and I was doing a bunch of drawings for Inktober, and then I kind of got busy with other stuff and only did like a third of the month. But I think some of those were pretty neat. Those are also on my Instagram. Um, Next for the comics, though, I'm trying to get down, testing out a few different things with art styles, trying to work out the best way to maybe color some of them.
Mm.
Because so far I've done everything in kind of just like an inked manga style where it's just a line art with micron pens,
Okay.
and it does take a lot of time. Um, and I have some ideas on how I may be able to not only get things done a little bit quicker, but have like some more like value range and be able to just get like more detail and working on making them a little bit better, more presentable. Um, but story wise, I have a trio of Star Alliance characters that are going to be restationed to the setting of the comics. And
Sweet.
once they arrive, they'll have a bit of a history lesson on the caravanserai, and it'll be kind of that comic will be kind of an overview of the history of that setting and kind of like why it is there and why it's got so many different cultures mashed into one place. So that one's exciting. I've got an outline and storyboarding and stuff done for that already, so it's just a matter of kind of getting those gears rolling on getting that together. And then I do eventually want to bring in a couple archons and maybe some stuff with the Martian Rebellion coming up, because I do
Ooh,
have a
perfect.
Mars character, um, who, if like you saw in the first comic, a Mars character who's not, they're not wearing the traditional Martian military outfit. They're just kind of hanging out with some headphones on, enjoying their life, and that's not typically what you see about Martians. So there's a comic for their origin story and kind of
Yeah.
why they left, and then there might be some comics a little bit later about the consequences of leaving.
Oh. Yeah, no, that I those are good stories about the backstory of because it starts out part of kind of Mars. Um and when it
Yeah, yeah, they start out on a mission, and something goes a little bit awry in the mission, and yeah, I'll just let you check it out.
got to read the comics, got to read the comics. Yep. Cool. So that all
Hmm.
sounds like awesome stuff. What was it? Yeah, and you had mentioned kind of some of the work that you did for hyping of the Game Found campaign, and definitely check that out. It's really cool stuff. And like I've said before, it's unlike anything else that we have that the community is generating. And the community is awesome. There's lots of different content creators doing a lot of cool stuff, but I feel like yours
Oh
is
yeah.
really unique and it's really awesome and brings something really valuable to the community.
It's just kind of what I know. Ever since I was a kid, I've always been like drawing my own Pokemon and drawing my own Zelda maps, that sort of thing. So
Awesome.
I get really obsessed with things. I can't stop thinking about them, and then I just have to put it out some way somehow. Um, and if I could do it in a useful and productive way that maybe gets people excited or adds a little bit more flavor to somebody's lives, like that's great. I love that.
That's so cool. Okay. The second question was any other future content do you have planned?
So I want to do a series for my YouTube. I haven't really started on this yet. I got like kind of a table set up behind me, but I want to run through all of the adventures. I want to go through the ones that FFG put out. Whatever this new one, the Fall of House Gormengeist comes out, definitely
Ooh,
want to do that one. But I also want to get into some of the community made projects. There's the Flight of the Royal Fortune, which I haven't actually played yet, but I do have it all printed out and all sleeved up, and I've read through everything, and it looks great. If you
nice.
haven't tried that out or looked at it, it's definitely worth a peek if you're interested in the solo gaming. Like I said, there's not like a ton of a scene around here, so the solo gaming just really helps. It's up my alley.
Yeah.
You could do a lot of fun things that you can't do in a normal match where somebody's really trying to beat you. There's a lot of fun stuff you can get away with. So like really look through your decks, especially like those low SAS ones that kind of get ignored and neglected. Like those really come to life in the Keyforge Adventures in a different way, I think.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
but those I'll kind of work through and try to get all of the different community adventures that I can find out of the way and kind of get those. Um, and part of the motivation for that is I just want people to have a visual example of seeing it played, and it kind of gives them an idea maybe if they want to try it or not.
Yeah.
And eventually I will get to the adventure that I have been working on. It's still kind of in like beta testing. So there's some revisions to be made. The artwork needs to be like finished beyond just like the sketches that I've used as placeholders. So finishing that is definitely something I want to do. And then I've got some other adventure ideas. I need to start reaching out and try to get a little bit of help from some other people for like making the mechanics really work. But I do have some more Keyforge Adventure ideas. Eventually, I might do something called Red Key Radio that I
Ooh.
really want to do, which is a radio show set within universe.
Oh, that sounds cool.
Yeah, and so I've got like a notebook full of ideas for that. But it's just kind of like a little radio show, radio drama type thing. Uh, Possibly scripted, possibly some improvisation. I haven't really decided on that yet, but they'll feature like little side stories, um, little like fake commercials, that kind of thing.
Oh, that would be
And
so cool.
and so that's like an idea that I've been kicking around, but that's kind of after I get like bit a little bit more experience with content creation. I think that might be something coming down the line. Um, and aside from that, just I kind of want to just keep uh making art, making comics, and eventually get my skills up, get good enough, and get a good enough portfolio that maybe GG will hire me to do official art for the game.
Yeah.
Long-term
Very
goal, but
awesome.
I think it's not unrealistic.
It's good to have goals and something to work through.
Yeah, for sure.
I like it. So all that sounds really awesome, and yeah, I think especially with kind of what you've already shown with some of your art and your stories and kind of your insight into the art and the lore, I think you could do amazing things with like having a solo adventure. So that's exciting as well. But oh, I love all your ideas. The radio show sounds amazing. So
That
yeah, go ahead.
that was partially I think Mortivus hit me up at one point and kind of like helped give me some inspiration to do that because I'd been thinking about something along those lines before, and it was a conversation that he and I had about a year or so ago that really got the gears turning, and then I just started like pulling out pieces of paper and writing stuff down, and it eventually turned into Red Key Radio. And the Red Key Radio because it's a Skyborn pilot flying around with like a radio broadcast station.
Oh wow,
Um, and Skyborn, the only card we really suspect coming from them so far is the Red Baron. So
that's so
Red Key
cool.
Radio just kind of fit in and sounded fun.
Totally, I love that whole thought process. This sounds like a it's like limitless like potential, and hopefully we get to see more from the Skyborn at some point as well.
It's also an excuse for me to try my hand at voice acting,
Yeah,
see if I'm any good at that.
awesome. So, I'm gonna share kind of all the links to where you got all your cool stuff going on, your YouTube, your Instagram, your ArtStation, the Keyforge Adventure. So share the links in the chat there. I'll also include them when I post this on YouTube as well. So go check out all this cool stuff.
Mm.
Okay. Um, Thank you so much, Ketzer. So what's coming up next for DataForge, especially Art Project Part 3?
Yeah,
Um,
what do you got coming up next?
yeah, well, I've loved this whole Art Project series, and we didn't talk about it yet, but Art Project is no longer here. I named this whole series after the upcoming card in Winds of Exchange Art Project, which
They
they
pulled a
just
bait and switch
announced.
on you.
They bait and switched. Yep, they just announced it's no longer in the set. May come back
Gone
in the future.
goozled.
Gone Goozle. But what the quark? Um, but that's all right. We're keeping the name. We'll keep its legacy alive, and we got fun stuff planned for Art Project Part 3, including more viewers Archons. There was already a call in our DataForge channel on the Ancient Bear Republic Discord. Um, so we're definitely gonna do that. We'll get anybody who wants to submit some Archons. Well, we'll have to have some limitations. But I'll have you submit archons, and we'll do the same kind of process that we saw here today on those archons.
Yeah,
Um,
submit your archons, get a sick image, and then send it in to get some sleeves or a playmat made of it. Your
I
favorite archon.
I love it. I love it. It's a great idea. Um, we also the other idea I have is trained models. So what is a trained model? You can train a model that interfaces into this stable diffusion system. And so what that means is you can take a whole bunch of images and train a model so it can produce images that look like those images. And kind of like the thing that was first hot for this and kind of blowing up was people would kind of train a model on their own face and then they would produce art like of themselves as Superman or the presidents or in certain art styles or and so
Interesting.
yeah, so that was pretty interesting. But kind of the way that I thought about it is, oh, what can we do in the world of Keyforge? And there's a couple different thoughts that I had. One was, can we train a model on Archon art? So give it a whole bunch of different Archon arts, train it on that, and then what would come out when we try and create new art pieces of that? Or could we then kind of produce even kind of different images in the archon art style? Might be really cool.
Mm.
Um, so that was one idea. And then the other idea I had for a trained model was basing it on kind of different house art styles. Um, so actually using the Keyforge art from all the cards and maybe training different models based off of the different art styles and the different houses. And we could have a dis house model where we could then produce kind of art with that same style. Um,
Yeah. I think that might be especially helpful to get some of those defining features of the different houses, like the Star Alliance logo on Star Alliance characters, or the little stealth emitters for the Shadows characters.
yeah, and I'm wondering how much the model would pick up, especially like those, because like yeah, those different features and like there's the House of the Open Eye symbol and Sanctum, and like, would it pick up on those and actually put those in the images? Like, yeah, I'm curious to see if that would work or not, or
Right.
if just the feeling of the photo would look like that art, but it wouldn't necessarily have kind of some of those features.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see kind of where we can take that, the AI
Yeah.
art generation.
And then another
It's
idea. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say because I like when we first started talking about this, I looked over a lot of things explaining um the AI process, and I didn't really get it on a technical level, but I think I might be able to get it on an intuitive level. So it's really interesting to see and kind of feel out kind of where the computer's brain's at on some of these things.
Yeah, and the models are all really created with a whole bunch of different images and things from certain databases. And so obviously those images, like those databases, they have a whole bunch of like classical artists and things like that. They don't necessarily like I would be very surprised if there's any kind of Keyforge like related stuff that are in there all in the starting models that they were created with. And it's a similar even with some of the other stuff that are super popular now in the world in the last couple years. It's probably too late to that would have been there when these models were created. Um, so being able to then train a new model to then get some of this generated, I think would be a kind of interesting way to go and see what would come out of it.
Yeah, for sure.
The other thing that Ketzer and I actually did briefly kind of look at was just with the current model itself, without training it on the current art, what could you do in terms of creating images that had a similar style of our current houses? And I shared a couple small ones here that are kind of a sanctum type feel um, that we created. Um, and Ketzer did a good job of kind of coming up with certain kind of aspects around a house's art that may be a good description
Yeah,
of
figure.
what that. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm just starting like lists of different house traits. Um, so I might like put that up somewhere for people to kind of like add to or curate or something.
yeah, yeah, that'd be great. So I mean, I definitely want to try the train model, but it might be a lot of work, and we'll see if how it actually comes out. Maybe it doesn't even come out right well, so it might even work better just to if we get a really good set of kind of representative traits to come up with then art that matches the style. Might work just as good or better.
Yeah.
Um, but then the last thing is, I want to hear from you. What would you like to see in the next art project? What else could we dig into? Um, Let us know. There's our, let's see, hopefully, oh, I need to fix my bot. Need to fix my bot. We have a channel on the Ancient Bear Republic Discord. Let me get that link really quick for you. So please come there and um, let us know what you'd like to see. You can also ping me on Discord. You can ping me here on Twitch. I'm also on Twitter under DataForge Stream. Um, and I would love to hear what you all want to see. And this is the link to the Ancient Bear Republic Discord. So please check that out. We're in the channel hashtag DataForge. So what's next? And just in DataForge, I'm going to be at the Keyforge celebration, which is super exciting. And so I plan to do some streams there. Um, Plan to hopefully do some deck openings for Winds of Exchange for the first time.
So
Interviews with
nice.
people there. I'm planning to have some fun with the interviews, with some quotes um, from cards and doing funny questions. So that should be fun, and just trying to get a good sense of kind of the event, just some insight into kind of the event at a bigger scale, just for everyone who's not able to go.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm very excited for everybody who gets to be able to attend.
Yeah, I really lucky. I've never been to any big event like this, so really excited and yeah, hope to share some of that excitement on the stream. Um, we might also do a Winds of Exchange card review at some point. We'll see about that. Um, if nothing else, kind of after the celebration, I'll probably give a recap stream um, of kind of the event and everything that was seen and went on there. And as always, I'll continue to have my data collection streams where I will be either doing my NKFL Nordic Keyforge League matches or my ABR Ancient Bear Republic League matches as well. So, but if there's anything else you'd like to see, one idea that I had just recently, there's been a lot of talk about kind of multi-card combos in DT and how kind of they're hard to assess. And it also got me thinking about kind of some of the other analysis that we've done of kind of, oh, how many turns does it take to get to, a super important card that's in your deck? And I started thinking about it from there's certain cool combos that people want to see in decks. And I'll just take like a classic kind of infamous one from Worlds Collide, Tribute plus 6 Semper Tyrannosaurus. Um,
Such a
but
gross combo. I hate it.
it is, yeah, it can get up to 5 Ember on your biggest creature and then take it all. So more or less stealing 4 Ember plus gaining Ember. Um, and
Oh my goodness.
yeah, it's huge. And so one
Rough.
one of the ideas I had was trying to come up with the probability of seeing some of these combos based off of their card, um, whether they're a common or uncommon or rare card, on what's the probability that you'll actually see these combos in your deck. Um, and I think
Mm.
especially with kind of DT having even combos that require more cards, and we'll see kind of what Winds of Exchange brings. I thought of kind of one idea for a future stream is really assessing. Okay, tribute 6 Semper. I think that's a common. I think it's 2 commons. So what's the probability of seeing that in your deck versus Brig or Martian Generosity Key Abduction, which is a rare and uncommon, which is much less likely. And but what really is a probability? So I kind of want to do some analysis on that. I thought that might be interesting, especially with kind of combos becoming even more important, like in Dark Tidings and beyond, potentially.
Yeah, yeah. I'm always here for Dark Tidings content. Uh, I think it's a really fun set, and I don't think it gets. It's been getting a lot of love lately. DT best set pops up in a lot of streams these days. But we still don't have tournament wins for Dark Tidings quite in the same way that other sets do. So
Yeah, I
it's
can't.
definitely like one that needs to work to show its stuff. But
Yeah,
just wait, it'll come around. Like people dogged on AOA too, and then now we've got all kinds of cool AOA decks, not just Genka, not just Brig, but can do a lot of cool stuff.
no, I
And
totally agree.
I think people just need to give DT some time, figure out how to play it better, figure out that tide a bit more. Because it's definitely like it's a lot different playing DT versus DT and DT on other sets. So it's very interesting to see which decks work out in different matchups.
Yeah, no, I
But
agree. Whether you're playing in the set versus other decks that can easily raise the tide versus playing out of set is a huge difference and can sometimes make or break a deck.
yeah, I think sequencing is also very, very important with Dark Tidings, and that's that's something that takes a bit of getting used to um, from some of the other decks before. Like sequencing has always been important, but there's something about Dark Tidings that like you can really like almost throw a match just by not doing two things in the right order.
Yeah, no,
At
I
least that's the
definitely
way it
agree.
feels.
Yep. Um, yeah, I hope in the new Ghost Galaxy world we have kind of the equivalent of Vault Tours in some level of abundance again because I think DT will win one at some point. There's already some crazy busted decks out there, and there's gonna be probably even more. Um, and I think they'll win a Vault Tour or its equivalent at some point.
Whenever I get one in my area, I'm gonna be hard pressed, depending on how good Winds of Exchange is. But if I go to any kind of official tournament, I just might take entirely Dark Tidings, just to help kind of boost the exposure, boost the representation. Plus, I like a lot of my Dark Tidings decks. Maybe I just got really lucky, but I got some real cool ones.
That's awesome. Cool. So if you guys like that idea, let me know in Data Forge channel. If you don't, if you would rather see something else, let me know. Um, but that's all we have for today. I'd like to thank you so much, Ketzer, for joining us. Your insight is amazing, and it's also, like I said before, some something that kind of we don't hear a lot about in kind of the content creation, and so I think more people need to know about it because I think it'll bring them a lot of value. We were actually talking and a lot of enjoyment, but we were talking for a little while when we were prepping for the stream about the art and how cool it is and that
Mm,
um
mm.
and one of the things that I mentioned was I'm kind of like a technical person by nature, and like when I first got into Keyforge, and my tendency still is very kind of focusing on the card mechanics. And so there'd be cards where you would say the name, and I have no idea what the art is. But when I do go out and actually look at the art, and especially when I go to some of these artists' art stations and can see kind of the high resolution art without the cropping
Mm,
and really see kind of the artist's vision, it's like very rewarding to do, and I get a lot of enjoyment out of it. Um, so I really
oh
like
yeah,
kind of the insight that you bring to it, and that you're bringing your own art. The comics is like something that nothing else is doing. You're doing a lot of awesome stuff for the community that nobody else is.
you got there's some stories out there. Um, there's a little bit going on. So I know I'm not alone. I know I'm not the only person interested. Uh, and kind of getting those little bits of feedback and support kind of just help me keep going with it. And I like to try to encourage other people to join in. Like it doesn't have to be super great. Like I'll post some of the drawings that I have that aren't like super high quality, super technically great, and just kind of encourage other people to just anything you got, throw it up there. I've seen some pretty cool fan art for Keyforge actually, like on ArtStation, Instagram. Some neat stuff out there.
Yeah,
You just gotta kind of look a little bit.
that's true. And it's not necessarily visible, or as easily visible. Even for me, who's like in all the Keyforge discords, like I've seen some of that Keyforge fan art on ArtStation as well, which I've never seen posted anywhere, and maybe I just missed it. But um,
Right, like yeah, some of those ones on ArtStation I've only seen on ArtStation.
yeah, but you are right. There is other like Real Player One, um, has done a lot
Mm-hmm.
of kind of fan
Has a whole
fiction.
website with some short stories and stuff.
Yeah, so check out his Epic Quest if if that interests you. Um, but definitely looking forward to seeing more kind of all the things that you have on your plate, and yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on. It's been real fun. I don't usually come on to any kind of podcast or anything.
It's been a pleasure. Pleasure has definitely been all mine, and I really thank you for joining us. So
Yeah, just reach out if you ever want to have me back.
awesome. We'll have to do that at some point. Okay. With
Great.
that, I think we are done. Do you have anything else that you wanted to mention or shout out before we finish up?
Happy Halloween. Be safe if you're going to the Keyforge celebration. Um, Try to be courteous to everybody else and just encourage people to enjoy the game. You know, first and foremost, it's about having fun. It's not about getting the sweet taste of bloody victory, or anything like that. I guess for some people it could be, but I like to think that Keyforge has a much more wholesome community, and I love seeing how friendly everybody is towards each other and how supportive everyone is. And just keep that up, keep it rolling, keep the support. Um, let Ghost Galaxy know how much this game means to all of us, and how big it could be. Because I truly believe that Keyforge is a game with so much potential. Um, Even just simply the fact that it's a game of forging keys and it's not just beating your opponent to death. It's not life points. I think it's got a lot going for it, and I think the community and the fan base is the best out of any game that I've ever been a part of. So just thank you to everybody for being awesome.
Awesome. I couldn't have said it any better. So I think that's the way we should close it. So thank you so much, and thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great evening, morning, wherever you are. Have a great one. Thanks, Ketzer.
Good night, y'all.
Let me pull up the outro music. Have a good one.
Pew, pew, pew.